Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, Gene.
And V. We interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Jenny Goldberg. Hey!
Hey!
Hey,
up,
it's
Jenny?
me. Hello.
Hey, it's Jenny.
It's me.
Thank you
Hey,
so much for joining us.
thank you for having me.
Of course. How's your day going?
It's sweaty. It's all right.
Yeah. It's Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to you. You were
happy,
a father.
happy sweaty Father's Day to you too.
Yeah. You're a father of many millipedes, right?
Oh, I am the Millie Daddy.
Daddy.
I'm a Millie Daddy.
I think that's your new Twitter handle.
I was looking up your Instagram stories to make your promo picture, and then I saw all the millipedes, and they're very cute, but I am very afraid of them.
Don't be afraid. They're so cute.
They're just
It's
babies.
the feet.
Just
It's just there's so
the
many
little
feet.
legs.
It's
They're just
too many
little
feet.
gentle weirdos. I promise.
living little brushes. Jenny, tell us who you are and what you do.
Who am I? I don't
Who
know.
are
I
you?
ask myself this every day, but
Let's get deep. Let's figure out some existential shit here.
who am I? I am God. Where do I even fucking start? I'm Jenny Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
I work in animation, mostly doing character design and art direction, and god damn, I feel I'm so bad at describing myself. I don't know.
I think you're doing great.
I'm just some guy, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's start with your humble origins. How did you first kind of get into art, and what got you going on this path?
Oh Jesus. Okay.
I like the slight panic as you're trying to explain.
No, it's okay. No, I think, you know, I was very influenced by the fact that like both my parents come from animation.
Mm-hmm.
They're both drawlers by trade as well, and yeah, I grew up in a household just full of animation cells and drawing and all of that stuff. So it was just kind of part of the
That's so cool.
atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird thing because it's like you have two people who I'm gonna try to draw my dad. Happy
It's
Dad-
Father's Day.
Happy Dad's Day, and like you had two people who were really talented and did this professionally, and as a kid, you know, you're just like, hey, look, I drew this fucking mermaid, and my mom would be like, well, your anatomy is fucked, and I'd be like, I'm 5, you know, and like
Oh, wow, that's brutal. Yeah, that's something
Man,
I've always
yeah.
wondered. Like, you know, if you grow up with like your parents being artists, you know, like, are they going to be like really encouraging, or are they going to be like just really tough on like, hey, I know this craft?
Mm.
it's hard because you have two people who just do it professionally, so like that they're used to like picking everybody's work apart and everything, so that's just part of the thing. But you know, I played a lot of drawing games with my dad, who looks like this sorta. I don't fucking know. Yeah, so I grew up with parents who were both doing this, and yeah, where do I even go with that?
Well, I mean, like, did they kind of push you towards art at all, or was it just sort of
No.
something you were interested in? Okay, you just kind of were going by your own volition.
I was just kind of doing what I liked to do, and that was just making shit from like everything. Just I liked constructing things and drawing things, and it was just kind of part of the general energy of my brain, and I couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. What kind of other things were you also making,
Yeah.
like, besides drawing?
I mean, I love sculpting, and I just was always doing dumb things. Like, I was that kid in elementary school, like, doing origami by themselves. Like, it was just, I don't know.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly. I don't know, shit. But, yeah, I liked just literally anything. I was also that kid making hook rugs in elementary school with my grandma, or...
What's a hook rug?
It's just, like, you take little pieces of yarn that are cut into, like, maybe, like, 3-inch pieces, and then you take a little hook and a kind of a gridded mesh, and you knot the single piece through the mesh like a million times in kind of like a pixeled pattern to form.
Oh, okay.
Oh, kind of like what you recently posted on Instagram, right?
That is done with a gun. So that is like
Oh, like a Glock, like just an actual gun?
I'm just firing like an AK-47 into a canvas. It's pretty cool.
That's sick. Commission Jenny to shoot a gun and make some crafts for you.
Yeah, I'll just fucking go to town for you.
Yeah, that'd be fucking
Yeah,
sick.
brah, brah,
All right. There you go. Here's some.
Those rugs are amazing,
nice
by the
bracelet.
way. The colors are insane, and the shapes are really cute.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think it's cool that like it shows. I mean, you're still doing that stuff. Like post so much. Like you're making like collars and all these different little crafts and things, and it's crazy. Like I don't see a lot of art. I guess like drawing artists doing other things like that, and so it's really cool to see that you've kept up with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something very specific about that though, because I feel like I've always kind of done that stuff like in secret, and I didn't post it because I felt like a weird shame attached to it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because it wasn't related directly to my career or like what I should have been doing. And
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a big pressure within the animation community to be like what are you working on? Like, what are you doing? Like, does it always fucking pertain to something important, And it's tough because, like, I don't know, like, I wanted to be doing a lot of stuff. I think it was actually over during the pandemic, like, I kind of let go of a lot of that angst and was just kind of like, well, fuck it. Like, I'm so miserable. I'm going to just be more indulgent creatively and do more wants instead of more shoulds,
Sure.
And I think ultimately that's actually been helping my brain a lot.
Yeah, I think it happened to a lot of people. I feel like I've seen a lot of friends and peers say fuck it. It's been a real fuck it year.
It really has.
Just doing shit, indulging, and but I think also part of it is a lot of my friends are in their like late 20s to 30s, and we're all just like, hey, I'm like an adult, right? Like you like look around and you're like, wait, shit, I'm an adult. And I can do whatever the fuck I want, like Bam Margera. And so
exactly,
it's been a nice kind of release. And yeah, everyone seems like they're figuring out their happiness. And so I'm always happy to hear when people are just like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna do this thing that makes me happy, because why not?
Yeah, I agree. Like it felt more pressing to do things that were happy inducing during this last year.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
So when you were growing up, you were doing all these kind of crafts and did you know you wanted to pursue a career in art specifically, or did you kind of like keep all your like avenues open? Kind of what was the process for you going through school?
I mean, I always knew I wanted to go into a field of art. I actually felt like fashion was where I was going to head initially.
Interesting.
But like I was constantly taking extracurricular classes all through like elementary school and high school and junior high. Like I was that weird child that would be in like the metalworking class with like a bunch of moms who just wanted to learn like metalworking in their free time, and I'd be like the one kid in there just being like, I'm here to learn metalworking too, and they'd just be like, oh, fucking kid.
Yeah.
But
really
yeah,
cool.
I think my brain was like, I want to do illustration, I want to do fashion, I want to do something in that kind of family of things. For a while, because I was really obsessed with Paco Rabanne, who did, like, he was a runway designer, but also did, like, all the costuming for Barbarella, and, like...
Oh, cool.
So I was, like, as a kid, completely obsessed with what he did, and I got into chainmail like in a big way in like junior high, and I actually contacted some like local spot at one point that was just like some house that did chainmail for movies and stuff, and I was like, hi, I'm 13 and I'd like to work for your company doing chainmail, and they were like, fuck off, and I'm like, well, okay.
That's so funny.
That's so funny.
You really chase your passions, huh?
I'm really annoying about them. Yeah. But they're annoying to me. Like they're in my head and I can't ignore them. So it's like,
that's great. Yeah, you recognize the stuff that you want to do. I think that's awesome. And then you pursue it, which is important, because I think a lot of people just let it, they just think about it, but they never actually act on it. So that's great.
it's like it becomes like a high pitched squeal in my head until I do something about it.
Interesting.
It's like I need, like, during this break I got a bee in my bonnet about the rug making stuff, and suddenly I think a lot of that can be attributed to my very intense ADD, but like fell down like the most insane rabbit hole of like rug making techniques, and then just like went completely bonkers on that and was like, well, I'm investing in like a 3-foot frame, and I'm investing in a gun, and I'm investing in this, and I'm just gonna do it. We're doing it. Here we are, and we're making a rug. Oh, we made a fucked up rug. Okay, we're making another rug. Like, it just, I don't know. Yeah,
But do you feel like, is it like like an actual kind of compulsion, or I find that interesting. Like, do you feel like you can't kind of sit still until you do those things? You try those things that like are nagging at you?
Yeah, actually. I think I can't comfortably like go about my life knowing that there's this thing that I want to try, and then I don't try it. But then to be fair, I also don't think that I'm like, there are certain things that rank so highly for me, and I've put on this like psycho pedestal that like I want very badly to do them, and then I'm so scared of doing them that I don't. Like, voice acting is one of those for me where
that'd be great.
Fucking love it. Like, it makes me so happy, and any time I've had any opportunity to like do that for anything, I'm over the moon about it.
Okay.
And
Gene will remember that.
Yeah, yes, please. Oh God, if you need any voices, hit me up.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, I love that shit. But I also, I'm like, who am I to believe that I deserve a voice acting career? I'm fucking nobody.
Well, there's plenty of reasons to not do something. You know, there's always going to be the doubt and people gatekeeping and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's great that you try things. I think like that's, I don't know. I always love hearing when guests of the show talk about their passions and just like that feeling of compulsion. I almost want to, we usually save the creative block question for later, but I would love to ask it now. Like, do you ever feel a creative block? And if you do, what does it feel like for you?
Oh God, yes. I think I feel very different flavors of creative blocks as well. Like, let's say I'm experiencing like some very profound burnout on a job.
Yeah.
You know, like recently I had a very brutal job during the pandemic, and I had to quit because it was too much. And when I came off of that job, it was like, while I was on the job, I was like, I'm fucking dominating. I know how to draw like a motherfucker. Like, yeah, I'm getting it. And then like when I left, it was like, how do I hold a pen? I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like shattering every time that happens, where you feel like, oh my God, I don't know how to exist anymore. And my way, more recently especially, to dig my way out of that hole is like change mediums. And I have started basically like doing exactly what I've been describing to you already, where it's just like, don't do something where you're sitting at a computer. Like, do something that is like making something with your hands, or sing, or like I don't know, just do something else for a minute, and like it won't be as painful when you come back. Because I think there's this pressure to be like, well, back to drawing. Oh God, I haven't drawn for myself for so long, and then you feel all this pressure for having not drawn for yourself, and you're like beating yourself about that, and then you like, it's this just poo loop of feeling bad and then not working because you feel bad, and then it just and feeling worse because you're not drawing, and it's terrible.
Very familiar.
The feedback loop, yeah. It's tough. I mean, I'm going through it right now too. Like it's a bad habit of mine to keep wanting to push through it, but it's like everybody that's come on the show has similar advice, which is that like you got to walk away from it. You know, it's like you got to just try something else. And I think it's cool. The reason why I brought it up earlier is because it sounds like you have so many different interests that like you must always have something to hop to when like drawing is holding you back. So you're like, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And that must feel good. Do you think that that's helped you over the years?
I do. Absolutely. But once again, I think, as I said, there's like a lot of like weird shame tied up in it. And so like I wasn't for a long time indulging in the way that I should have in like other things, because I would still be sitting at the computer and be like slapping myself across the face and be like, go draw, you stupid bitch, what are you doing, and like it was terrible. And I like only, I'd say within honestly my 30s.
Yeah.
I'm turning 37 in like a month exactly. And my 30s have been a respite for my brain in that regard, where I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, I just don't fucking care. And so, yeah, it's being able to like drop everything and like go do a rug or go do something else. I've even tried right now, especially during the pandemic, to bookend my shit, where I start with something that is for me at the beginning of the day. Then I do things that I need to do in the sandwichy meat part of the day. And then like the other bread part is me doing something for myself again. And so it's
such a way of describing things.
Oh, that's so good. That's really good.
These
I love
visual
that.
metaphors. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for real, I feel like for me also, like when you say like starting the day with something you enjoy, I feel like there was a time in my life where I was really on top of doing that, and I was the most productive and like happy about my days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just hard to just like actually keep that discipline, I would say,
Yeah,
like
it's so hard.
And not,
it is.
like, yeah,
because you get sucked into those jobs and stuff, and you're like, you just give your whole life force to them.
Yeah.
God, if that's anything that I can impart on like any younger artists that are listening to this, like don't let your job consume you.
Yeah.
They don't care about you.
No,
it's
a job.
It's a job. They will fire you. You have to have other hobbies. Your work will still be recognized as long as you're doing it. Like,
at the same time though, I'm putting just a small asterisk.
Go for it.
It's just like, I feel like, unfortunately, like at the beginning of a career, and you might like speak on that too as well, Jenny, is like at the beginning you just kind of have to just like work your ass off. I don't know.
Well, let me asterisk your asterisks, because like my very, very first job that I had that was like an official job was cleanup on Monster High. And I worked with this dude named Leo. And I was staying late every night, and I was like working way longer hours and just really busting my hump to like prove my value, because I felt like you feel like you owe the animation industry something for giving you a job.
Right.
The hard fast truth is they need you.
Yeah.
But you don't know that when you're little, and you're like, I'm gonna give them my whole butt and soul and everything, and like
whole butt,
my whole butt. And I'm at my desk grinding away. It's like 9 p.m. and Leo walks in and he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm just burning the midnight oil, just trying to like prove my worth to myself and to this company. And self-worth issues totally tangled up in this job. And like he was like, go home. And I'm like, I will eventually. And he's like, go home now, go home. And I was like, and he was like, look, when you work longer hours and you put in all that extra time, it sets a bad precedence for everyone else on this job. And it makes the studio have unrealistic expectations of their workers to just do that. Right. And it makes it like normalized. So don't do that. Go home. And it was maybe the most important bit of advice that I received like early on in my career. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be busting your hump or trying extra hard and all of that stuff. But also it's like really important to be mindful that it affects everybody around you and the company's perception of you and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's really true, especially the I feel also like even like I've also heard something that like if someone works hours that are too long, like longer than expected, it's kind of like it also might make you as a worker look not as efficient, kind of like,
Oh
where
yeah, it can backfire.
you know, like kind of like, oh, why are you here so long when you should have been able to get that job done within like the 9 to 5 kind of thing.
That's
I mean,
how I always see it. Like
yeah.
I've yeah, like some artists, not even just artists, like even production people I've known that stay like till 9 p.m. and it's like, what were you doing? Like there's no way that you should still be working on this, right? Like that's how I always feel. It's like take the time, like
go home.
I don't know,
Just
go home. If
Yeah.
you couldn't finish this task in the time, you know, if you were working, even not even working that hard, if you were working throughout the day and you couldn't finish, that's an issue of the schedule, not you. Like you should never have to grind more than the time during the day.
Absolutely.
Get your overtime pay, you know. But
That's so true.
If you can, go get that OT.
Get that overtime. I think that if I could add an asterisk to your asterisk, I think that like early on, it's going to happen. You know, you want to set yourself apart. Yeah. And you want to you have to find some way to set yourself apart. And so like, it's inevitable that people are going to grind. And I definitely did. And it probably helped me.
I was just going to say, like, I feel like it's also just like, at least for me, like, you know, when you start your job, you're not as like experienced. So, you know, you're just slower at the beginning. Like, unfortunately, like, you know, when you start out, it's just how it is. It's just like, it used to be like really hard for me to complete a board in X amount of time. And now I'm like, yeah, I can do it. You know, it's kind of,
it happens with time. I think if you like, you gotta kind of grind a little bit in the beginning, and especially when you have the energy to, but there comes a point, and I recognized it when I first got my job at Nick, where I was like, I feel like I have quote unquote made it. And I immediately set up those boundaries of like, I'm not going to take my work home with me. And like, and that helped a lot. Like I actually, you know, I had a lot of friends who were miserable because they were also taking on like freelance and all this other shit. And I'm like, are you happy? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then what are you doing? Like, just like make that separation, go home and like relax, like whatever. You're here, you're working. But everyone's different.
I mean, I get it. It's hard, like especially when it comes to things like freelance, because I've had in huge stints of my career where I'm working almost exclusively freelance, and then you're like, oh my God, when is the next gig gonna come my way? So then you're like, I gotta keep rolling. Like as long as things are offered to me, I have to keep taking them. But the reality is, like, as long as you just keep rolling, like things will come your way. And honestly, the old adage, when it rains when it rains it pours, is like so accurate, because it'll be like a dry spell for like 3 months, and then all of a sudden you're getting like 12 offers, and you're like, oh fuck, like what do I even do with all of this? And you're like, I want to take all of them.
Yeah, I think that like one of the reasons why I was saying that it's good to not overdo it, or you know, just have other things besides drawing, like you were saying how you used to feel that shame and that guilt, and it's like ultimately if you're a creative person, like you shouldn't box yourself into just drawing all the time, because like you're gonna end up not having anything else, and that ultimately hurts your main hustle. Like, you know, like when you have those other hobbies, you're just making yourself better. You're still making yourself a better hire. You're making yourself a better person, and all of that stuff comes back around.
Absolutely.
I almost wish that I had more hobbies growing up, because like it's like I haven't lived life enough, and like I'm fine, you know, but I know there are people that do even less. Like they just were all in on like OCs and drawing and or whatever, and it's like, oh man, you gotta like travel, you gotta like do what you can to just like live your life, and then you'll feel more fulfilled later on in life, because you won't feel like you've only been grinding at this job that's thankless, like ultimately.
Oh my God, yes.
So but yeah, so it's always, everyone's different, everyone's paths are different. That's kind of the point of the show.
And,
but let's go ahead, V.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, tying in back to everyone's different. So when did you realize that you, like, what did you go to college? I was wondering if you went to college, because you said that you were really interested in fashion. Is that something that you ended up pursuing?
Sort of. I took a bunch of early college program fashion classes and like fiber arts classes and stuff. And
Fiber arts.
yeah, it's like working with weird materials. Like I'm gonna learn how to dye things with cabbages, and I'm gonna learn.
What the fuck? Oh my!
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay, well,
you can use
Cabbage dyeing.
cabbages and onions and all kinds of stuff. Make like all kinds of crazy bright dye. It's really interesting. So
Wow,
it's like
that's like a bender art, like fiber arts.
the fiber arts.
Yeah, the fiber arts.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. There's like a whole bunch of different aspects to it. It's like learning different textile techniques like batik and like all that stuff, where you use like wax on fabric to create like a negative design, and then you dye it, and then you lose the wax out of it, and then
Whoa.
it's like the empty space where the dye did not touch is left, and the image is, So it's like all
Holy
kinds of
shit, okay.
interesting ways to like make your own textiles, and then like interesting ways to like sew them into stuff. So I did a lot of that before college, and took a bunch of courses. And then once I was actually like going into college, I applied all over the place, and I got into the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, the one that's like attached to the museum. And I went there specifically actually with the idea of doing illustration, because Edward Gorey went there, who's a huge one for me. I have a really cute Edward Gorey story I could share at some point, but
Please.
should I share it now?
Do it now. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I did not take my ADD medication, so if I'm just tangenting like
No,
super
no.
hard, like let
We'll
me
keep
know.
you on track.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, when I was like 9 at my school, we had this project that was like, choose an artist and then do a piece of theirs and dress as them. And around this time, I was already like a massive Edward Gorey fan, and I used to go to like antiquarian book fairs with my mom, and I had dealers that I'd hit up and be like, yo, you got some Gorey for me? And I was like looking for fucking first editions and shit. I was like such a weird little goblin. And so of course I'm like, oh, well, duh, Edward Gorey, no brainer. So I told my teacher I'm doing Edward Gorey, and she was like, well, Edward Gorey is not a real artist. And I was like, excuse me? And she's like, he's a commercial artist. We're talking about people
off.
like Picasso. And my parents are both what would be considered, quote, commercial artists. And my mom, I came home and was like, Miss Allison said I couldn't do Edward Gorey because he's a commercial artist. And my mom was like, oh, hell no. And then like she went to the school, and she was like, Jenny, stay outside. And I was like, oh God.
Man, that's great.
And she reamed my art teacher, and then they both came out. My mom was like, you can do Edward Gorey now. And I was like, oh, okay.
Your mom rules.
My mom is, you don't want to fuck with my mom.
Yeah.
She means business all the time. She was an animation lady in a sea of men for a very long time.
Oh, God,
so
yeah.
You don't fuck with that. But so I did Edward Gorey. I dressed in a pair of stovepipe jeans, a pair of Converse sneakers, and a Doubtful Guest t-shirt. And then the piece de resistance was this like very tatty giant beaver fur coat that my mom and I found at a thrift store. And I put a big beard on my face and pulled my hair back into a ponytail and was like, I'm Edward Gorey! And
that's so cute.
And I was like, I have to do this in the most authentic way possible. So I learned like dip pen and ink, and like did a piece from the Apoplectic Bicycle, which it was like the drawing of this little alligator on his back, and it says I die next to him. And I thought it was the funniest shit when I was 9. Still think it's pretty funny now.
Sounds pretty funny.
It's real good. So I did that piece, and at the time, my mom was working at Warner's, and she had a friend, Steve, who was working directly with Edward Gorey to develop some of his stories into shorts. And my mom was like, look, here, let's take a picture of you dressed as Edward Gorey, and let's take a picture of you holding your piece from the Apoplectic Bicycle. And we gave it to Steve to give to Edward Gorey. And then I didn't hear anything back for a while. Oh, I also wrote like a very embarrassing fan letter that was like, dear Mr. Gorey, I'm 9 years old and I love your books and I'm your biggest fan. And look, I dress like you. And I didn't get a letter, or it was I didn't get anything back for a while, and then all that came was a stuffed animal that he had sewn by hand for me of one of his gossips, and it's like orange with pink polka dots all over it, and so I still have that to this day. So Edward Gorey
That's awesome.
responded by making me a doll, which is very sweet.
That's so cute. Oh my god.
It's one of my treasures to this day.
When was this?
What
year?
Fuck. What year was it when I was 9? I'm 37 now. I'm so bad at math. Jesus Christ.
I was wondering if you knew offhand.
It's definitely like early 90s.
He died a while ago.
It would be like 93 because I moved.
Oh, okay.
I moved from England in 1990 to the United States, and then I was 6. So yeah, it would have been like 93.
Yeah, you grew up in England, right? That's interesting.
Ooh, wait, that's cool. Yeah, talk about that.
Oh, I mean, it's as simple as that. Both my parents were in England doing mostly, like, my dad was working on commercials. He was working at a commercial company that was partially his called Pizzazz, because 80s, and and doing like lots of commercial ads and stuff that were animated. And my mom was working on things like Five Goes West and Cool World and
Hell yeah.
Fern Gully and stuff like that. And she was doing like, yeah, lots of Bakshi movies and whatever. So we were there until I was 6, and then
How long total? Like, were you there for like how many years?
I was there for 6 years. My parents, because I was 6, but my
So you were born there.
I was born there. Yeah.
Whoa, so you have like double nationality.
I do, except like they just changed all the laws, so I've lost my dual citizenship, which really bums me out. Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
No.
Fucking blows, because I, especially during like the Trump administration, was like, well, I'm moving to England. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, get the fuck out.
And then I was like, okay, I can't move to England. Never mind.
God, it just keeps getting worse. Yeah.
Wait, so did you have a British accent?
Oh my God, I had a very heavy British accent.
Really?
I did.
So cute. Oh
We
my
have
God.
like we have like old videos of me when I was a kid. There's one in particular that's very distinct where I got a present for my birthday, and they set this huge box in front of me, and I had such a prim British accent. It's very funny. I say,
Oh my God.
I'm like, it's rather large, and like that's like the clearest.
That's so cute.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm like 4, and I'm like, it's rather large. I'm like, oh God, you
Yeah.
weird fancy child. What is
You
wrong?
Harry Potter child, yeah.
But yeah, so we were there for a while, and then we moved to California because my dad got the opportunity to do the genie in Aladdin. So that was why we moved. So
Oh wow. Yeah.
So that was my dad's big claim to fame, as he created the genie, and then
That's nuts.
both my parents from that point forward were at Disney Feature, and they were both working on things like Pocahontas and Hercules, and they have 2 pieces that my mom art directed and my dad directed in Fantasia 2000, and so they were like doing full Disney stuff for forever. But yeah, I moved here as a weird little kid with a super heavy British accent, which I paid for dearly.
Oh, really? So kind of like, how was
no.
that? And like, so yeah, like, do you think like your sense of like, were you already crafting like in England? Like, kind of how were your hobbies in England compared to like the accessibility of like all different kind of hobbies out here in California? Or is that maybe you were too young? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, like, I was always making stuff. Like, that's just part of, as I said, like, that was just part of the DNA. I don't think I could have avoided it. It was just, yeah, it was part of the scenery. But that also, when I got to the United States and I started going to, like, an elementary school full of children who are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you talk like that?
You talk wrong.
You talk all wrong, you weird kid. But yeah, I got, like, the shit beaten out of me for having a British accent. And freckles, and carrying a very chewed up looking bear around named Bear for a very long time. And honestly, making stuff and drawing became like a very distinct fallback for me, where I just hid out most of my early life and just drew alone because it was harder to like deal with other kids. So it was kind of like a crutch for me for a long time to just like deal. And then it got worse because I developed epilepsy as a child.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
So
man.
I was like the British kid with epilepsy.
Oh, whoa.
And that only like furthered like kids from me, because I had my first seizure in front of my entire school during an Arbor Day ceremony where I was singing on stage.
Jesus.
Oh, no.
And after that, all the kids were convinced they could catch epilepsy from me. So I was like, I became a super pariah, and then was really leaning on art to like be my only friend. So it was, I had like kind of a tumultuous,
Yeah, no kidding.
like kidhood.
Wow. And you say like as a kid, do you still deal with the epilepsy now?
No. I had what was called childhood seizure syndrome, and luckily I grew out of it.
Yeah.
But I had some doozies. This is so not art related, so I apologize.
That's
but,
it's a struggle. It's all part of it.
I had another seizure. My mom used to go get these like sick, like gigantic acrylics that were usually holiday themed. So if it was like, you know, fucking pumpkin times, like Halloween, she'd get like these crazy acrylics with like 3-dimensional pumpkins on them back in like the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was sick as hell. And
Hell yeah.
I'd usually go with her to her appointments and just like sit there. And one day, like one of the manicurists came over and they're like, "Do you want a manicure too?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I think I was probably around 9 then, maybe like 8. And so she's painting my nails, and I just had a seizure in the chair while she's painting my nails, and she like completely lost her shit and was crying when I came out of it, and I was like, oh
yeah.
God, I just scared the shit out of the manicurist. I'm sorry. But
Was this something like that would trigger it, or was it just random?
I found that when I was like too hot, or I was like very nervous or overwhelmed, or like it was just lots of like feelings, it happened. Though the manicure doesn't really make sense because I don't feel like it was particularly like, you know, anxiety inducing or anything.
Yeah,
but
yeah, those are relaxing.
But I mean, it could be like as a little kid. I mean, I feel like as a little kid, if like a random like grown up came up to me and was like, "I'm gonna paint your nails," I would have been like, abort, you know, like I don't know. It's like I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of like grown-ups are scary when you're a kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like luckily that wasn't too much of a factor, but yeah, it was still like, I don't know. I felt bad for that poor lady.
You were suffering. Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah.
You were a child having a seizure. She can get over it. That's crazy though. But so what kind of what was your first like quote unquote, you know, art job?
Oh man. First art job. I mean, I feel like I've always been a hustler, like forever. I started like I learned how to do like lamp working, which is where you like melt glass and wrap it around like a mandrel to make beads.
What don't you do?
I've done like everything under the sun. I love just making shit. And I started making like shitty beads like and jewelry and stuff when I was in junior high, and like selling it to people in school and selling it to teachers. And so I was like already hustling like at a young age to be like, do you want to buy my wares?
Do you have like a trench coat and you would open like, you want to buy some?
I mean, I would be like, here's some examples of my work. You can commission me. Like the word commission didn't even exist to me yet, but it was like basically like getting commissions at like, you know, at 11.
So cool.
Being like, here, I've made this necklace. This one has a bee on it. This one has a ladybug on it. Like, which one interests you? And I will make you a bee or a ladybug out of glass, and then I will bring you the necklace tomorrow. You know, and it was just, I don't know. I also love just making shit for people. So, like, a lot of the time was also just gifting it. But first official job, I helped my dad do cleanup animation on this Drew Carey show thing that was like where Drew Carey was like talking in front of an animated screen, and like the screen was portraying what he was talking about or something. It was really weird. But I did a whole bunch of cleanup on a horse. I don't think I got paid for that, but my dad was like, "Do you want to help with this because I have too much to do?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." And I think I was still in high school, and then, you know, college happened. I went to college. I learned no applicable skills. I came out with a degree in printmaking because it was the only place I was allowed to draw, mostly, aside from like figure drawing, but they didn't have an illustration department. And I just wrote Rachel like I was writing my sister's name. I was going to say, it's Rachel. It's rather large.
It's rather large.
But it's rather large. I graduated from college not knowing Photoshop, not knowing any skills that I use currently. And I was like, well, I'm going to go into children's book illustration, and then tried to do that, but mostly just worked in a pet shop for like a year and like shoveled animal shit. I have some pet shop stories. Good God. Holy
Give us
cow.
one.
Just one.
Okay. So I, as the new girl, was supposed to take care of the betta fish, which are those little Chinese fighting fish, and they're real pretty.
Okay.
And they're kept in their own containers because if they're in the same container, they'll kill each other. So I like your drawing with the gigantic present. So
That's
cute.
It's rather. See, that one is rather large.
It's really, really large.
It's really rather large.
It's super rather large.
It just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Probably.
So silly. I love it. I feel like I'm drawing nothing good right now, by the way. But
That doesn't matter.
Better fish?
I don't know what is happening. I don't even know. This is just
a cool blob.
I'm just making a blob.
So yeah, what about these fish?
Yes, sorry, betta fish. So the betta fish, they all have these like little holes at the tops of the containers that you drop food into. And coincidentally, those holes are just big enough for betta fish to fit through. And so part of my job was when the betta fish would sometimes commit suicide and jump out of the holes, they would stick to the cabinet that they were on, like the jars were on. So they'd like jump and then stick to the side of the cabinet. And then they would dry out to be these like little mummy fish that were just adhered to the cabinet. And we had a spatula that I would use to pry the little dead mummy fish off the cabinet with. And that was a thing consistently. I was like, how often could this possibly happen? And then I was like, oh, all the time is the answer.
Wow.
One of those jobs that it's like I know nothing about, and it's like, wow, I guess that is a task that one would probably have to do.
Oh man, yeah. There's all kinds of things you aren't aware of that you'll have to do at a pet shop when you work at it. As a very brief one more story, there was this woman that we called the cockatiel lady that used to come in. She would wear a giant oversized t-shirt. She was really, really short and very, very wide. And she would generally have like 8 cockatiels, like live cockatiels, just clinging to her as she'd walk into the store. And she'd just go, cockatiels, and then we'd like point to the back of the room, and then one of the girls would go open up the cage, and this woman's giant hand would just reach into the cage, snag a bird, stick it to her shirt, and then throw money on the counter and walk out of the store. That was
Was she eating them? Like,
I'm like, I don't know why. What was she doing with all those fucking cockatiels, and why were they staying on her shirt? I don't know.
I can't believe this is not a movie. I can't believe this is real. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. Is like how this is like out of it.
You gotta pitch this show. This
dude, I have so much fucking weird life fodder. Like, I've worked some dumb pre-animation jobs. I worked at a head shop, and I'd never smoked weed before for like a while. And then people would come in and be like, which pipe is the best? And I'm like, I don't know, I've never smoked weed. This one's
That's
pretty.
So funny.
It's very silly.
This one's pretty.
That's so great. It's so funny.
You're just like, this'll give you dude, you're gonna get a buzz.
You gonna get fucked up.
You're gonna get potted. You're gonna get lit.
It's gonna get crazy.
Yeah. It's gonna be nuts. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So what other kind of jobs did you have?
I mean, I just, as I said, I've always hustled, so like hawked my wares for a very, very, very long time. And pet shop and the head shop. Well, the head shop also was connected to a store where you could build like personal shrines.
This is fascinating. This is just
to
I'm
like
forgetting to draw.
Where
'cause
was
I'm
this?
just-
Was this in California or Chicago?
this was during this is in Chicago. There was this weird clutch of stores called The Alley that were like this umbrella of weird like alt shops. There was like a sex store, there was like a leather shop, there was this head shop, and then there was like this weird like shrine store called Architectural Revolution that I used to work for. And so I was hanging out in Architectural Revolution, and we always were burning Nag Champa, and like we were actually like, there was a culture to The Alley where they wanted you to like be aggressive to the customers, or like make the customers like
uncomfortable.
It was kind of
What
part of the job. I also learned that I was making very, very below minimum wage working there, which is fascinating. But I learned that later because I didn't know better at the time.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. This is a weird place to work.
That's so
No kidding.
So intense. Like, I can't believe. Like, wait. So were you good at making people uncomfortable?
So at the time, I had a completely shaved head.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always dressed loud. Like, I started dyeing my hair blue when I was, like, 12. And, even before that, when I got a haircut, I'd be like, shave the whole back of it. They'd be like, you're 9. What are you telling me right now? I'm like, shut up. I want...
Shut up and shave my head.
Shut up and shave the back of my head. And they're like, but you're a girl. And I'm like, I don't know what you're even saying to me. Just fucking do the thing. And then they'd be like, okay. And then I'd come out with these, like, really weird haircuts. So I've been doing that forever. It's just, once again, part of the DNA.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did your parents care at all about your wacky hair shenanigans?
The hair, they didn't seem ever bothered by. The piercings in the ears, they did not seem too bothered by. My mom took me to Claire's like 800 times to have like a teenager just punch a hole in my ears because I wanted it with like a gun. Like, never went to a piercer until college. But she was not cool with the idea of tattoos and was not really into the idea of like facial piercings or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
When I got my septum pierced not that long ago, she warned me that she would never look at my face again if I got this.
Wow.
She lied because she still looks at my face.
You're like, gotcha.
Fucking got you, Mom.
Got.
So funny. So, in terms of like, that was so interesting that you did all these like funny jobs. Did you like ever have to what's the word, kind of stagger like your first industry jobs with like some of the in between jobs, or how was your first kind of like breaking in, kind of like I'm in-house kind of thing?
So I think the break-in process was totally unnatural. Like well, I guess it depends on your standpoint. So I started at the very fucking bottom. I'm always blown away by people who are like, I went to college and then I got my first storyboarding job, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow. Because as I said, I graduated from college and was like, I'm gonna do children's book illustration, and then like that did not pan out in any capacity because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and I was working at the pet store, and I was struggling really hard because I had to teach myself Photoshop and like teach myself everything after I got out of school. So I was doing that at the same time as kind of just like looking around for things that I could do. And it was weird. Like, I had a friend at the time whose mom was going to be running Wild Brain Studios. And they were moving from the Bay Area to here, and that they were going to be staffing up. And during college, I made a terrible comic with Jonan, because we've been friends for like 1,000 years, called Jellyfist, that no one should ever look for. It's awful. But I sent her a copy of Jellyfist, and I sent her some drawings, and didn't hear back. And I was like, well, I'm applying for my hair cutting license, and I'm going to just go cut hair. I don't know what the fuck else to do. And I got into Vidal Sassoon Academy, and then within the same day, I got hit up by this lady who, her name is Marge Dean. Marge reached out and was like, we have a job. We could hire you to do cleanup. Do you know Illustrator? or Flash, and I was like, no, but I will fucking learn right now. And so started learning and got my first cleanup gig, cleaning up stuff like really rough paper pencil drawings that are like designers were doing to translate for Flash, basically. I never learned Flash well, but I did that. So I was
that was actually, do you remember how we met? Because you were working, we'll come to the Zim movie later, but there was a moment where somebody, Brian Burns, came down to where I was working. Yeah, and it was like, hey, I hear you're the Flash guy. And I was like,
Flash boy, yes.
Yeah, because somebody on the floor that Zim was on mentioned my name. They're like, yeah, I think Gene is like a Flash wizard. And I was like, I guess. And so there was like some tiny Flash thing that you all needed help with. And that was the first time we met. So I guess your lack of Flash knowledge led to us actually meeting. So that's just
so that's good.
A funny aside. Yeah, that's good. That's the positive.
I mean, I've tried to learn Flash like 8 billion times, but to me, it's like trying to bend some kind of fucking wire hanger into a drawing.
Yeah, that's about right. That's Flash. You don't need to learn it. It's dead now anyway. So.
Oh, it's so rough.
But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's great. It's just that basically was how I started out. And I worked at Wild Brain Animation for like 4 years. And they realized that like I was fixing the designs because I was like noticing that they were off model or something, and it was making me annoyed. So like I was taking the designers' designs and I was fixing them without telling anybody. And at one point my boss was like, so we've noticed that you're drawing over the drawings and you're not just cleaning them up. And I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah, we see what you're doing. And I was like, okay. And they're like, do you want to just be a designer? And I was like,
oh, wow.
Yes.
You think you were in trouble?
I did. I thought I was in shit. And they were like, do you want to just design? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, great. You can design. You can still clean up everybody's work on your own and you get paid the same. You're a designer now. And I was like, yay.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it's awesome, but it is definitely a thing.
Was it not something you wanted to do?
I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, honestly. Like, animation, I had kind of vowed to never go into it because my parents, I just saw how, like, torturous it was and how rough it was for them. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. And then I was in it, you know? It just, I was like, well, eat my fucking words. But
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so interesting. Was Wild Brains, where was that studio? Was it still in Chicago or was
No, it was out here. I had moved home by this point, and it was in Sherman Oaks. And so I was just driving from Glendale to Sherman Oaks every day. But yeah, and I stuck around there for a long, long time. And then, you know, much like all of the animation industry, you make friends along the way. If you're personable and you're pleasant to work with and you get your shit done, people hit you up in the future. And my friend Brad Gake, who is a sweet potato, actually commented on your post, and I was like, "Oh, Brad!" But he hit me up to get a job to test for a job at Cartoon Network, which would be my first like big studio job. And I took the test and it was like, I'm never gonna get this. And I got it, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is like, I feel like I'm wearing like big boy pants now. This is crazy. I'm doing it. And I went to Secret Mountain Fort Awesome as my first like in studio career move thing, and worked with my friend Brad and met my friend Dominic and a bunch of other people. But yeah, it's interesting. And like almost this entire time, like it was very dude heavy, like almost every production that I'd been on. So I was often the only, like on Secret Mountain, I think I was the only female artist on the crew.
Yeesh.
Yeah, I bet, especially since Secret Mountain is like Adult Swim, right?
Nope,
that was Cartoon Network.
That was just Cartoon Network proper.
That was just Cartoon Network? Wow, that's crazy. I thought
Things have changed a lot, yeah.
Wow.
Like, pretty fast, I think. Things have gotten better. It was pretty rough for a while.
Well, I mean, it was funny because Secret Mountain was on the same floor as Problem Solvers, which was like We were like the island of misfit toys, like that floor. Like nobody wanted us, and they're like, "Why do you exist?" And we were just like making shit that nobody watched and wanted. And there's like a lot of camaraderie on that floor for that reason, which was very funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh man, I love problem solvers. It's so weird.
I do too. I fucking love problem solvers.
Yeah, it's so insane. I like the first time I watched it, I was like, this is some bullshit. And then I kept watching and I was like, I actually like this. I like this.
Some bullshit.
This is some fucking...
It's a weird show.
It's super weird.
Yeah. It's super meta. But anyway, yeah. And Secret Mountain, I remember watching that also when I was like, wait, I was a teen? Yeah, I probably was a teen. I was probably like 17. Yeah.
2008 or 9 or something. I forget.
Yeah, I'm fucking old. It's okay.
No.
Well,
you're
it's
only a little
crazy
bit
because
older
you're
than
not
us.
like that much older than me because I'm 32.
Yeah.
So you're only like 5 years older than me. But yeah, like cartoons just go fast.
Cartoons go fast. They sure do. Like Sonic.
Yeah, he's got to go fast. Or
Gotta go fast. What did you do after that?
After I did, Secret Mountain, I only worked for a little bit, and then it was as if Cartoon Network realized the atrocity they had made, and they were like, wait, kill it. Like, this is awful. Why do we have a show with a character made entirely out of butts? We don't want this. And it was like one day I went into work, and they were like, pack up, everybody, it's over. And we were like,
Oof.
oh, okay. So... yeah, it just kind of ended very abruptly. And, like, from there on, God, I don't know if I can recall the arc that took place from that point forward, because I worked so many jobs. I had, like, tons of freelance that was overlapping at the same time, too. So it just, it all became kind of a mush. And I've worked on, for every studio at this point, and, like, on a ton of different productions. I don't even know.
Well, then, if you're down, let's talk about art directing on Zim. How was that like? How did that start?
Well, that started mostly because Jonan had me kind of art directing the comics.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so I was already helping set the look and the color palette for the comics. I was working mostly with, like, Simon Truslier, who goes by Simon Hutt, who's incredible, and to this day, I literally will hire him for like anything I'm working on forever and ever, because he's such a just incredible talent and super sweet person. But he and I were developing what the Zim comics look like together, and then I did like art directed the first 6 issues of the Zim comic, I think, and like all the artwork and color and everything I would manage, and it would kind of pass through me and what have you.
It's an interesting role. You don't hear about like art directing comics as much. I think usually it's kind of a linear.
It is, yeah.
Thing.
And I think that mostly came from the fact that Jonan had something very specific in mind and wanted somebody to help execute that, because he didn't want Zim to feel old. Like, he didn't want it to feel like it used to. And we talked a lot about like being inspired by like a lot of French comic book artists and like Mike Mignola and like people that we were kind of veering closer towards, and just making overall this like more kind of, I don't know, like fancy thing, or like that's what we were kind of shooting for. So he kind of put me in charge of being the funnel through which everything passed. And so that was like my role for the comics. And by around that time, I think I was working on Unikitty, doing character, which was a really fun experience. Actually, the showrunners are like such sweethearts, and they were maybe the best showrunners I've worked under. But
oh, great.
They were always smiling when I was on Thundercats. Like,
dude,
I would see them and they're always like happy, and I was just like,
Lynn and Ed are just incredible humans. I adore them so much.
Yeah,
they're great. But so I was in the middle of my stint on Unikitty, and then Jonan was in talks about the Zim movie with Nickelodeon, and they were struggling to find an art director, and I kept kind of like gently waving my arm in the background, being like, and finally Jonan was like, I have an idea, Jenny should do it.
Oh, great.
like, okay. But yeah, so I left Unikitty and went on to Art Direct Zim, and that experience, I mean, honestly, I think it's my favorite production that I've ever been on, and it was fucking hard. I mean, art directing, it was like the first time I'd done it in any kind of like large scale capacity, because I'd done it for, you know, like we haven't gone into this, but Joan and I had like a pilot in development at Disney for 4.5 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. But
yeah.
That's probably a whole other thing.
Oh, it's such a thing. Good gravy. But yeah, like we, you know, I'd been art directing like our thing for that. As well as like generating a lot of the design and everything. But I'd never art directed on this particular scale. So it was definitely like a trial by fire kind of like learning experience. But also like while we had like such a dinky crew, it was so small, it was such a teeny little skeleton crew, we were so close, and it was like this little family. And I've never really been on a production that's been quite as close knit as this one. I think that there's like a lot of productions where every department becomes an island and nobody wants to interface with each other, and it really bums me out. Like storyboard artists don't talk to designers, and cleanup people don't talk to storyboard, and directors don't talk to anybody, and like EPs like you never even see their faces. Like it's like these crazy isolation pockets. And Zim was maybe with the first production I'd ever worked on that felt like there was a total breakdown of that weird hierarchy. And we were all just like, everyone hung out with everybody, board artists, designers, cleanup people, coordinators, like Brian, who's an EP on it, and Jonan, and who's like the creator, which is almost unheard of, like creators like hanging out with their crew. And like we just all hung out and watched movies and played video games and like worked our asses off, and there's just this real team energy that I think was really lovely.
Yeah.
But it was a lot, you know. It was a highly complicated movie that we did for not a lot of money, and it was a huge undertaking. And Jonan had a very specific idea of what he wanted to look like, so it took a lot of, you know, like we wanted to get it right, and it was a choppy ship, but one that I would gladly board again. Like I would happily do it again.
Well, I want to say, like, I think that it looks amazing. Like, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the show. Like, I was blown away by it, and I think the best thing I can say about it, hopefully you take this as a compliment because I really mean it, is that like you designed it to look like how I remembered it. Like, you pulled out the parts that were the most inspiring for me and all this stuff, because I grew up with Zim.
Yeah,
as well.
same.
Like, I was a kid, and so it was like the polish and everything, like it modernized it, but kept the spirit alive. And so like, I think that it's like fucking amazing. Like I rewatch it every time, and I notice new things and just like the palettes, and it's fucking rad. Like it's such a, you can tell that the crew loved working on it, and it's because I mean, obviously, you know, I have a lot of friends on the show, and so I know, or in the movie, and so I knew how excited people were to work on it. But that the bond that you describe and everything, like it comes through. Like there's a real love that shines through, I think.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I know, no, actually, that's exactly what you described is exactly what I had in my head when I was trying to do it, because it was like, I don't want it. I rewatched all of Zim to remind myself like what Zim looks like, and I as I'm watching it, I'm like, God, was there really this much like gray and baloney pink in it?
Yes,
my God, this much like olive
baloney pink. Yeah,
it was like very weirdly desaturated in comparison to like my memory of it, which my brain had translated it to this like hyper vivid, like crazy colored thing. And then seeing it again, I was like, actually, it's kind of understated. This is really weird. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go with how it made me feel instead of how it actually looked. Which I think, you know, it caused a little bumpiness, because in some ways I think Jonan was very concerned about like both preserving the energy of the old show, like the ugliness, the intentional ugliness of it and stuff. But, you know, he'd like come into my office and yell at me that I made it too pretty. And
Get over it, Jonan.
I was like, oh God, come on, man. I'm trying. But, you know, I just, it's how I remembered it. And so I kind of assumed, maybe that's presumptuous, but I assumed that's also how a lot of people remembered it. And that's actually a bit of feedback that I've gotten since the movie has come out, that people are like, this is how I remember Zim being. This is so funny. And I think our brains being younger just translated it as this more like vibrant, crazy looking thing.
I was also just like recently I was watching some old Nick cartoons like Real Monsters, and like
oh god,
weirdly enough, a lot of cartoons were very gray brown. Yeah. Like it's just like I don't know if it's the technology or like it could, because it could be the technology, because at the time like it was still kind of like paper, right? Like
yeah, but you're still painting things by hand, so you can pick your paints. I honestly think it's just kind of like we go through eras of style, you know?
Oh, true.
Yeah.
And I think it feels like the 90s. You can look at things like that coexisted at the time, like Daria, or like I was really big into like things like The Head and stuff like that, or like, you know, there's a lot of shows that didn't utilize like psycho colors, but it's weird because I do think if you're a kid in the 90s, your brain managed to process that shit and make it a lot more amplified.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's so interesting.
Yeah, kudos to you. I don't know. I think you nailed it. I think it's great.
Thank you so much. It was a fun one to work on. And goddamn it, Nickelodeon, fucking let us make a show again. We talked about it. But...
yeah.
So talk about a very important house, because you know Jonan talked about his side of things on his episode, but sounds like it was kind of more of your baby as far as like the initial idea. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I definitely I suddenly got a bee in my bonnet to make a show, which I think everybody gets that bee for the most part if they work in animation. It's just something that you start to feel. Also, let me give a little bit of advice from someone who's been through it and has seen the future and the past. Get some fucking managerial roles under your belt before you begin this process. Before becoming a show, or like trying to become a showrunner. I look back on myself back when I was doing Very Important House, and I'm like, I had no fucking business running a show, and I don't know if I could have done a great job at it. Even if we'd gotten it, I would have been a crazy showrunner, because it's get some managing jobs, directing positions or something under your belt before you jump into that fire. It will serve you very, very well.
Can you say a little bit, like just a couple details about that? Like just what would you think a leadership role would have kind of helps you with for Very Important House?
I mean, there's a lot of things. Something that I learned the hard way is that when you enter this Thunderdome with your idea, it's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that no one understands until it's happening. It suddenly belongs to a lot of people. And there's a thin line that you have to walk where you preserve your baby and also understand that it isn't yours. So it's like collaboration and letting go, and like forcing your ego to take a back seat, I think is so essential to surviving that process.
Absolutely.
Because if you, I know enough, I've worked for enough showrunners that held onto their show with their fists closed as tight as they could, and it made the production unbearable because all they did was micromanage and step on everything that everybody was doing because they were angry that it wasn't the thing that they were seeing in their head, but also they didn't have the skills to execute the thing that they did see in their head. So they're like angry to not like, why aren't you reading my mind is like generally the frustration. And I can't even tell you how many showrunners I've worked for that like I literally just got off of a show that was like that, where it's like, I'll just do it myself because you're all inept, you know, and like it's really hard. And I think to be a good showrunner, like a great showrunner is someone like, I just worked on Centaur World not too long ago, which is coming out in July, and I'm very excited about working for Megan Dong. She's so rad. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Like,
she's great.
she has so much experience, and like she is what I would say is one of the, that is like what you want to be as a showrunner. It's someone who hires the people that she knows, like she knows that they do something that she likes and that she respects that. And so she's like, I hired you because I like what you do. Now go do it. And that's how you get the best shit out of people, is let them work and don't step on everything that they're doing, and don't like, don't fight tooth and nail on every, like maybe it isn't the thing that you saw in your head, but maybe it's better, you know? And it's like reconciling your ego with that. It's so important. I can't even stress it. You know, I'm pitching right now, and like part of my dream to get a show is to know that it's like, it takes a village, and that like I would be able to create a crew of people that I love and can trust, and just let them go make something rad, where it's like my thing is a jumping off point for that, but it isn't the end all be all. And having like people also letting your artists feel like a personal investment in the project helps. You get better shit out of people if they feel personal investment, and it feels like their voice is important, and all of that stuff is so essential. And when you're young and you're just getting into it, you don't know all of this shit. And like I think, and of course there's like more technical reasons as well, things like understanding your pipeline, you know, understanding how shit gets made. I know enough board artists that have gotten shows who have no idea how design works, and that has hurt the show when they're running it, because design ends up getting slapped in the face over and over again. So it's like, if you're a board artist, like go fucking learn how design works. Or if you're a designer, unfortunately it's very rare that designers get shows, as I'm experiencing. Fucking annoying. But like, if you're a designer, go understand how the board pipeline works. But it's like, you need to know how all the machinery works together to make a thing before you can successfully make a thing. Not to say that you can't make a thing, but it's going to be a significantly more painful process.
Right, for everyone,
for everyone involved. And you'll have people quitting on you and getting frustrated and getting sad because they're getting stepped on in the process. And you just, it's just so important to remember like the human part of making something like this.
Right. I see it as like you're creating an instruction booklet for making the show. Like that, once I kind of came to that conclusion, it like made it make more sense. And not just for the artist even, it's like when you're pitching a show, it's like you're creating an instruction booklet for executives to give notes later. Like it's kind of a hard thing to articulate, but it's like, until you've been through that process. But it's like, if you want to create these sets of rules and parameters, and then you kind of have to let it go. But it's like, as long as the execs know what you're trying to accomplish, as long as the artists know what you're trying to accomplish, that's all you should do. That's all that like you can do. And then from there, it's just kind of curating a little bit. But,
like, to a degree. Yeah. I agree.
That's just the way that's like helped me. It's like thinking of it like setting up like a sandbox, you know, you set up a sandbox and then you just kind of let everyone that's involved kind of contribute a little bit. Otherwise, it's suffocating to everybody, and it hurts your chances of trying to get the thing made and then have a healthy crew and et cetera and et cetera. So that's just my take on it.
I agree. Yeah, I do think also a huge thing that I learned, you've also learned the hard way, is hire people that are more talented than you. Like,
absolutely.
don't let your own weird issues with like how you perceive your own work get in the way, and then see people that you're like, this person's so talented that I'm threatened by them and I'll never let them do what they're supposed to do. Like on Zim, I hired almost exclusively people that I knew were better than me and stuff. I was like, here, go be better than me on this movie and make me look like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that will, goddamn, that will make your thing great. If you just like don't...
It's just exciting to see it's exciting to see what people can bring to something. Like that's the goal. It's like you want to make it the best it can be.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, don't. I think the key here is like ego. It's like just don't let that trip you up a bunch along the way. And if it is like too much of an issue, then like by all means, like go make a comic or do something where you're not having to work with a huge crew of people and a company worth millions of dollars. Like do that. You do that as your own baby if it's very, very, very important to you. But if you're ready to like let go, then that's
yeah.
You gotta make your choices.
You do. Yeah, you gotta pick your battles in a big way. It's a tough one.
Is there any kind of like advice or anything that you would give to somebody who is like, what would you like to know? What would you have liked to know going into that process that you've learned through it?
You mean through development?
Yes, development. Yeah.
Okay. Damn. Honestly,
and it's probably a lot, but yeah.
There's a lot of things, I didn't know going into it. Get yourself a lawyer, understand your contracts, like know what you're actually getting into. Know that it's going to be punishment. It is not an easy process. Jean can tell you. It is a painful process. Not to say that you shouldn't do it. If you have that like want, just know that it's a gauntlet you're going to run, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of people that don't have your like, they're not watching your back. They're people who are ready to throw you under a bus to benefit their positions, or like it's really unfortunate that that's the way this industry works. And I wish I could say it's like, I got to make a thing and it was great, like, and that could be the end of it. But it's a really hard process. And even if you do succeed to a degree, there's just a million hurdles that you're jumping also within the process of succeeding. And it's never simple, and it's never easy. And you gotta, it's like preparing for battle, like it's interesting pitching right now because I'm like, what am I doing? Like, do I want this? Like, I clearly like have this weird urge to tell some story, but also like, is it worth this like degree of punishment? And I hope that I don't sound like incredibly negative.
It's hard not to.
It's hard.
I think you're right, because I did have like a I did have like a show in development with the producer, so not with the network, with the producer, and it just really, like, I went in like super naively, like very naive, and like you never really know kind of what you're supposed to do, or like if they're asking you to do a thing, is it just kind of like what step of the process are you in? Does that guarantee that that they think of you as like an important part of the project?
Oh yeah, and they'll like blow a bunch of smoke up your butt to make you think that you are.
It's a really weird thing, because it's like because it's true, like once they buy the idea, and in my case it was just a producer, it wasn't like a network, but like once they bought the idea, like they owned it and they could do whatever they wanted with it. Like,
yes, that's like a very important house. Yeah,
it's like you can, if they decide, like if you pitch it as a teenage show and they decide to make it preschool, well then it is preschool. You can't say anything about that. It's like, that's true.
Yeah, you're selling it. You're selling it. It's a business. It's not your idea. Yeah, you're selling a product, and that's something I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, and it's like they can and then it's I understand what you're saying. Like, it's painful because sometimes you're wondering like, well, why did you want to buy this thing to begin with if you're gonna like change it completely from what I originally pitched? But then, I guess sometimes it's like there's so many aspects of what attracts people to a project. It could be like they liked one design, one character, and they're buying the whole project to just keep that character. Like, there's so many moving pieces that at the end of the day, it is true. It's like, I mean, I think it's important to to talk about it, to say that like, yeah, it's not easy, but it doesn't mean that like we shouldn't do it. It's
No,
like,
if you want to do it, you should try. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the people who are going to do it are going to do it. You know, like I don't think there's if us talking about it this way is scaring you off, it was never going to happen.
You didn't have the chutzpah to begin with.
Yeah, you need to be obsessed with it. It takes a bit of madness. Like it takes a little bit of, you know, being a glutton for punishment. Masochist. That's what I was looking for.
I think there is also an aspect of it that it's like developing like your business / management skills. I know, like for me, when I started kind of like working with this producer, I had absolutely no idea how to talk about myself. I was just like, I said things that really backfired. Things like, oh, I'm an artist, I'm not a writer. And then they were like, oh, okay, writing this down. Like, you're like, basically, when I said that, I didn't realize that when I said that, I basically signed myself out of my own idea, because people really want writers, and you have to say, yeah, I'm a writer, even if you don't have credits, that doesn't matter. Like you have to say you're a writer, or else they're gonna like, well, if you don't know how to write, how are you gonna run the show?
We're not gonna be able to trust you with your own thing. Yeah.
It's like you're like selling yourself. Like you have to.
Yes.
It's not even just the idea. It's the idea.
You are part of the package.
Yeah, you're part of the package. The idea itself is almost worthless, and it is like 1% of everything else. It's like you're selling yourself. You're selling a demographic, a concept beyond just even like, it's like this whole meta thing that's not just like, here's some characters that I think would be fun to. It's like, nope. Yeah. They see a million of those. They've probably already seen your idea, so it's just like timing and hustle and being a good salesman. Let me also add to this, like, it's fucking Vegas, baby. Like,
my
boyfriend and my closest friends are probably sick of me saying that. You are playing the gosh darn slots when you begin this process, and
are.
And it's like, sometimes people not picking up your thing or whatever is not necessarily a reflection on you or your abilities or your story or anything. It's where you were, what time it was, what that executive had for breakfast, like if they forgot to pick their kid up in school, like it doesn't fucking matter. All of it, all of the things that are entirely out of your control are factors in how this shit pans out, because you are rolling dice when you go in to start pitching. And like, sometimes you'll see, sorry for anyone, I don't know how this is, like, I'm like dunking on, so I'm like, sorry for people who I'm gonna dunk on when I say this, but there a lot of absolute garbage gets produced, and
of course,
and those people who produced absolute garbage, it's like, yeah, maybe that person was really charismatic and also reminded that executive of their granddaughter, or like maybe maybe like the executive who had that like person pitch to them, like they were a friend of a friend, or like there's just so many weird factors that are at play, and none of it necessarily works against you or you're in your favor. It is just part of it's
chaos.
It's absolute chaos. So it's like, if you're pitching and your shit doesn't work out, first of all, do your best to not fall apart over it. You know, like after Very Important House got canned, and that was like incredibly bad. Like that whole process was, I've talked to other people and they're like, I've never heard anything go so badly as that.
Yeah.
But I had like a mild nervous breakdown. Like it really fucked me up, because Disney only moments prior had told us that it was definitely greenlit. And then
fucking God.
No.
And then Jonah and I were at fucking Cirque du Soleil, and we're standing outside, and we got free tickets, and we were so excited because his friend was in it, and we were like, oh my God, we're gonna go see Cirque du Soleil, and we're standing in the parking lot, and then we got a call from Disney, and they're like, Very Important House is dead, and then I cried through Cirque du Soleil while clowns are performing, and I'm like,
oh no! I can that's like a movie moment.
That's such a movie moment.
You just hear like slow motion circus music, like.
There was like a little, like one of those like little oh shit, like confetti like going over your face and stuff. And
Oh
you're, like
God,
partying
yeah.
and you're just like crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I
Oh,
was
I'm
constantly
so
like,
sorry.
no, I was like this weird dance between acknowledging the talent of the performance and also
Yeah.
being like so distraught. It was just so weird. I'd be like, oh my God, that contortionist is so incredible. But
Yeah.
I'm like, fine, I just Froley. Like it was so rough.
Wow.
Jeez.
And I don't know if Jonan mentioned this, but like, you know, Disney made it so we had no access. We have no access to Very Important House. They said a buyback. But yeah, it was crazy. Very Important House was hard. And it's really sweet. People are like, you should try to get it back. And it's like, you don't even know like what that takes or
No, I have no idea.
It's yeah, unbelievable.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think sometimes like as artists, like, and that's why I was talking a little bit about business, is that sometimes we don't really realize how colossal the companies are, because we're talking about companies like Disney owns Marvel and what's the other?
They own everything. They own Star Wars.
They own everything. They own Star Wars.
They own Fox
and yeah, Star Wars and Marvel and Fox, and it's like at this point you're talking about a company who has the means to
more wealth than you can ever comprehend.
Exactly. Which can be really great if you end up like vibing and getting a show with them. But it can be like, like business is rough.
Yeah, it is really, really. I mean, I do think it's important to tell people. It's like, remember, you're getting in bed with a giant. Like you are trying to get a company to invest millions of dollars in you in the hopes that that investment will pay off for them. Like, that is the whole exchange. They don't necessarily respect your art, and they're not making art for art's sake. Like, that's not the point. It's a business. And that is what is going to determine like how this shit pans out. And it's I wish I could say that it was like, oh yeah, Cartoon Network's cool, and or like so and so is cool, or Netflix is cool because they want to make something that feels more whatever. And it's like to a degree, but also they're a business and they want to profit. So it's like
and they're all a business also themselves in a competition. So
absolutely, and they're competing with each other.
Exactly. So when you're like working with like, for example, I don't know, I won't name any of them, but like company A, and maybe company A is trying really, really hard to have an idea with a dragon in it, because it's like the dragon moment. And it's
absolutely
like, they might just like, you happen to have a dragon pitch, and then they might just buy it because it's got a dragon in it, but they want it because they don't have dragon ideas right now, and they need a dragon show. And
dragons are in vogue. I know Very Important House was part of shows with portals in them.
Jesus.
But then they also told us, well, we already have shows with portals in them, so you're not allowed to use portals. And we were like, well, no, that's like, it's not like a integral center point of our show, but it is how sometimes she gets around. And so, no, we're not cutting portals as a means for travel. So, sorry.
It's really true. I feel like I pitched an idea way back, like probably like 7 years ago, and there happened to be a princess in the show. She was like a side character, and the company was like, we already have a princess show, so sorry. And it's like, oh man, the main character is not even a princess. there just happens to be a princess in the main cast, but like, you know.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't even like what the show is about.
It's really like, it's just, because when you're talking business at this point, it's like, you really have to, or I don't know, it's something I'm still trying to figure out. Maybe you're really clever and you find a log line that even though you got a princess in your show, it's, you kind of like make your show remembered as like something completely different, you know, like as, I don't know, it's like a father and daughter show, and then they forget about the princess. She's like father and daughter. But then it's like, but then I don't know if there's other father-daughter shows, then it's back to square one.
Well, it's like trying to, I think like networks will always have these like decrees, things that they're looking for, and it's like, we want more girl shows, or like that was a thing in Nickelodeon for a bit. It was like girl shows, you know, the genre girl, and
yes, a fine genre.
Yeah, and everyone was like scrambling to like, I gotta get a girl show together, and then I don't think there was a single one greenlit, you know, and it was like. And trying to adhere to those is impossible, and also worrying about what's already out there is impossible, and like just make the thing that makes you happy, and then get a good lawyer, you know, and like just hope that you don't get fucked in the process, because it's just that's just how it goes.
Absolutely. And like, you know, I think there's also something to be said about ways you can maintain your idea through this process. Like if you publish a comic first, or if you do something, then you will maintain ownership rights.
Build your IP first.
Yeah, you can build it first. I mean, and like I haven't done that because that's fucking daunting. But also like it is a way to maintain your shit and not like lose it entirely, or at least the chances of losing it are lowered.
Yep.
But
yeah. I feel like developing it like to an extent that it like I don't know, but it's kind of like there's no right way of doing it. There's not like a single way that's like the perfect way, because it kind of depends. I guess it's like when you go into this process, it's like what is your personal goal as an artist?
Right.
To do this, you know, like what
set a goal.
Is it like, do you want it to look really cool, or is there like a specific story that you want to say, or like, because I feel like, because then you can always like, you know, when you're like in the pains of it, and you're like, I don't even know why they wanted to buy this thing to begin with, you can just always kind of go back to this being like, all right, well, I started this process because I really wanted to do this thing. I feel like, but it's hard. It's so so hard.
It's really, really tough. And I always feel bad like talking to new people who are entering the industry and stuff, and about the brutality of this stuff. And I don't want anybody to get disheartened or get sad, or feel unmotivated to try. But I think it's just really important to keep your head on straight and learn as much as you can about how this process works, in terms of like even just how a show functions in general. Like ask a lot of questions on your productions, and learn just take in as much information as you can, and keep your head on a swivel, and know that there's just a massive element of chaos in this that you can't control. It's funny, not to like tangent super hard, but like you were talking about why even bother. And I've realized as I get older, I think my motivation for wanting to make a show has now come down more to the fact that, like, for me, it's like, I want to make a show that would be fun to execute. Like, wouldn't be torturous for the crew.
Yeah.
And would be, honestly, just like a safe spot in a sea of chaos. Like, I just want to make something that feels good for everybody to be a part of. And I find that that's far too rare on jobs. And I just, I want to create a fun, good environment where people, like, of course, you're going to suffer all of the regular slings and arrows of production. That's just like part of the game. Yeah. But like, if I could create a space where people feel heard, and like their ideas mattered, and like the drawing style wasn't painful or like overwrought, and like everything just felt as easy as it could, but also while telling funny stories and keeping people engaged. Like the thing that I'm pitching right now, my main character, it's for little ones. It's 7 and up what I'm pitching. And my main character is non-binary. And I myself identify as female. But like, I personally feel like if you have a show that has a non-binary main character, that you don't even have to talk about it. It just simply is.
That was a thing for me with Pebbles,
Yeah. Then it's like, that's something that's important to me. It's like I'd like to be able to have younger generations of people just get used to it and not have it be an adjustment. You know, I'm hurtling towards 40 and it's still an adjustment for me. But you know, I want to like respect everybody and want everybody to feel seen and heard and all of that stuff.
It's tough too, because it's like no matter how much we're seeing it on the sort of the ground level where everyone is embracing these things, and kids, we know kids don't give a shit. They're just like, well, are you a boy or a girl? They're neither. Okay. And they just like go and play with their trucks.
Go on about their business.
Yeah, they don't fucking care. And then, but yet you're dealing with like these executives that are worried about like countries in the Middle East or something where they're never going to get it, or maybe not for a long time. And it's just like, so you're like making all these justifications and you have to explain it, and it's just like they're like, what if we have to explain this within the show, and it's like, do you? I don't think you do. I think we should just let them be. But
I don't think there's as much explanation that's as necessary as I think there is a perception that there is. Like it's very funny. I think people are smart enough to like pick shit up. It's like just let it go. It's okay.
What are you working on these days?
Oh, fuck. I mean, nothing I can actually talk about, sadly. I'm mostly doing freelance. I was an idiot after I quit that very difficult job that I just left. And I would love to just go on about that, but...
Oh, yeah.
Naming names is tough. But I kind of told myself, like, I'm going to take a break. And I guess a break means taking on, like, 8 freelance jobs. So
my God. I feel you so much right now.
I'm such an idiot.
We both have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's so bad. I had, like, one friend approach me being like, hey, could you do some character stuff or some illustrations for whatever? And I was like, yeah, that doesn't seem like it's too time-consuming or, like, whatever. And then that became a big thing. And then... another friend of mine approached me being like, hey, I'm developing this thing. Could you design the lead characters for it? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like doing that. And then another person approached me being like, hey, could you and now I've just stacked everything all up, and I'm like so mad at myself because I'm spreading myself just as thin as if I were working full time, except my attention is divided between like a million different things.
Which is even harder. Hey, Jenny.
It is.
I'm developing an idea right now. Would you want to like do some designs for me? Sorry.
I totally would. That's the hard part.
That was a test.
Oh, that was a test. See, I'm gonna fail that fucking
Jenny,
test.
no.
Okay, but like it's worse with friends. It's worse with friends because I'm like, oh, of course I help you. I love you. Like
Yeah.
I will fail every goddamn time. Don't test me.
Oh man.
I'm too weak.
So what kind of stuff, you talked about it a little bit, but like what kind of stuff do you hope to accomplish in the near future? What are some of your goals?
Dude, I don't know. Goals is a weird word for me.
Yeah.
Of course, I think I've gotten to... See, this could go into a very dark direction, and I don't want it to. I think my relationship with the animation industry has gotten very... It's been really hard, you know? It's been really tough the last few years, and I think it's kind of wearing me down a lot. On a more positive goal end, I think I would love to get the thing that I'm pitching going somewhere. There's some little bites and nibbles from Cartoon Network. We'll see how that pans out. So I mean, if I could get that happening, that would be incredible. I'd be very, very happy to have that see the light of day. Because goddamn it, this bitch needs a win. Like it's been too long.
I hear you.
And like I think like more personal, like goals wise, is just to like seek more balance in my life and do more things that make me happy and make me feel like not using my career necessarily as the thing that I gauge my worth by, and figure out ways to sustain myself where I'm not entirely reliant on big animation to like be my money daddy, like fucking capitalism. Yeah. But like, you know, I'd love to get into more voice work stuff. That would like, holy shit. That is a dream that feels so weirdly simultaneously attainable and unattainable simultaneously.
I know what you mean.
and I just said simultaneously like 5 times. But like, yeah, I would literally sacrifice a whole family and hurl them into a volcano to have that opportunity, and yet it's so daunting that I don't actually like pursue the like options that I have in front of me because I'm scared that like, I don't know. It's scary trying to actually pursue the thing that like it feels like this thing on a pedestal. But if I could muster up the courage to do that, that would be that'd be so good. And yeah, I just want to make more things, not beat myself up about stuff, and hopefully have a pitch work out. I think that's like, and ultimately just be happy, take more time for myself, spend more time with people that I love, figure out a way to fucking buy a house. Jesus Christ. That seems...
Dude.
I don't know. That's going to happen.
I am 37 and have a roommate because this is...
We're all fucked.
We're all dicked, man. I'm just gonna... I mean, you can join me. I'm gonna just buy, like, some acreage in the middle of buttfuck nowhere and just set up, like, an artist commune, and, like, all my friends can build, like, little houses on the land, and we'll just have, like, you know, a little town of, like, refugee artists. So
hell yeah. I love
live
the sound
together.
Of that.
I feel like, we all have, like, low-key this, like... I was talking to one of my friends, he was like, yeah, I'm thinking Thailand. I was like, you're reading my mind.
Yo, I'd be down for Oregon. I don't even need it to be fancy or like a big move. Although
Oregon rules.
Dude, I'd go buy a chunk of like land in Oregon that's like far enough out to where it doesn't cost anything, and that'd be great.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Although
we'll talk.
My wife Bijou, like my platonic wife Bijou, and I, we've already discussed buying a house in Japan and moving to that like old people island.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know
we're
exactly
gonna do
what
that.
you're talking about. I looked into it. It was like, it's cheap as fuck to buy land there.
You can buy like a house for $500.
Yeah,
right now, or $5,000.
Yeah, I legitimately, like, Casey and I looked into it, and for like a second I was like, well, logistically, like, what would it take? But it's like, it's tough because like you can buy land as an American, but it's like a whole thing. I don't know.
Well, they want people moving there because the population is so low, so they're like, help.
Yeah.
I don't know also about the like legal aspect of it, like visas and stuff, because I wonder
if it's like New Zealand, because New Zealand is quick to pay artists because they're like, as long as you say made in New Zealand, we will support you financially.
Interesting.
Like, or with a visa.
Cool. Let's go to New Zealand.
My friend Jimmy Urine from Mindless Self-Indulgence and Chantal Claret, like they moved to New Zealand, and New Zealand is like, we love you, we love artists, like we're here to support you.
Seeing their like, I listened to their podcast about it all, and like hearing them talk about it, I'm like, shit, I kind of want to move to New Zealand. Like, I'm like,
dude, right?
Like seeing their beautiful life there, I'm like, that sounds pretty.
Oh my god,
sick.
yeah. Well, those fucking people. Jesus, I love
podcast.
them.
The podcast is called Podcast from the End of the World, I think, and it was it's short, but it's just them talking about like how they first decided to and how they used to visit, and they really fell in love with it. I think because Serge Tankian also lives there, and I think that was like kind of the first nibble of it. And then they also, like, Chantal is like a notable, actually the both of them big LOTR fans. That'll help. Yeah.
They're the sweetest people.
But it's still,
looking at them, like, I mean, we've been good friends for so long, but like just looking at them pop up on my social media being like, look at my beautiful children, and we love each other so much. Look at my hot wife. Look at my hot, beautiful wife holding our beautiful children. And I'm just like, you guys are amazing.
Yeah, if you can figure it out, man, that's the dream. But they've lived their life and then some, so I think they're ready to just like chill out.
Oh, chilling out sounds pretty cool. I'm not
chilling out
opposed.
Sounds pretty good.
Oof.
I don't know if I can do that yet, but someday.
I'm clearly like, I talk a big chill out game, but here I am with like 8 freelance gigs. So
well, there's still a buzz, you know, until that buzz calms down.
Until that parts of you dies, you know.
Until that part of you dies.
I feel like I'm always thinking about it. I'm always like thinking like, where could I move so I could just like buy a place and just
I think it's good to
make
think
comics,
about that.
and then I'm just like, too. I just gotta stick around in LA.
Oh my god, follow the cheap old houses Instagram.
I had to
and you're buying
unfollow because it's too tempting. Dude.
it's too enticing. You're like, I could
know.
buy a house for $20,000. Then sure, I'll live in Syracuse, New York, buying a house for $5,000.
Oh, geez. Someday. We got some good questions from Twitter from @Gofflin.
Amy.
Jenny! How do you come up with your color palettes for your own work? I love them.
Oh, well, Amy's a sweet potato.
How did a sweet potato type? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know so many sweet potatoes.
Wow, okay.
As far as coming up with color palettes, I think a lot of it just comes from like weird instinct stuff. But I think if we're going for like a more technical answer, then it comes from my bowels or whatever. Then I would say it's I tend to lean into certain colors. So I have like a set palette in my brain that I tend to already pluck from, but then it's more about creating a balance of like values. So you're like, okay, I don't want to, like, my lightest color in this will be represented by this like lavender and is super pale, and then my darkest color will be represented by this like really dark teal or whatever. But it's like creating something that feels like sometimes one of the most valuable lessons I learned was from Becky Draysdat, where she was like, I was like, Becky, teach me some hot tips about gouache painting. And she sat me down and she did, because she's incredible. And she would just take like 5 tubes of paint and she'd squirt just those 5 colors out. And she's like, that's all you're allowed to use. And that created this like hyper cohesive look to things, because you had to mix all of your colors based on these very limited like 3 to 5 colors. And it's like, and when she picks them, it's not like, well, I picked the rainbow. It's like I picked colors that feel complementary to one another. Like, I really like the way that like teal and like a pale salmon looks together, or like I really like the way that like a neon yellow plays next to like lavender or whatever. And I think, I also just go on like social media, or I have like 8,000 folders on Instagram of just like color, like pretty color things, where I just take like, I have a big folder of things that I can like flip through and be like, God damn, that's a good use of color. And then like be like, I wonder if I tried to apply this pink next to this like weird green, how that would work for me. And then like try something kind of based on something that somebody else came up with too, just to like try something else, or like break yourself out of like a habit that you get into where you use the same colors over and over again, even though I totally do that. But
I feel that.
Yeah, it's fun. I also do think like trying to setting a very limited palette and having that being the only thing you're allowed to use sometimes like makes it cool. There's also like some really neat palette apps that if you're stuck, you can use to kind of cycle through, and it'll like randomize colors for you, and then you can like be like, ooh, I like this and this color, and then you can lock those and then like keep shuffling until you see some others that like start to feel good together. So like that's a nice way to like break out of a palette rut too. But yeah, overall I think it's just like taking in the world around me, or taking in what other people are doing, or taking in like even just walking around and seeing something out in the world where you're like, this next to this looks pretty, and then taking a picture of something, and then like color dropping those. It literally pulling from like everything all the time. I fill my space with just like psycho color. No, there is no shame in reference. Don't rip people off ever, and don't claim other people's work as your own, but don't be afraid to be influenced by, or even like be like, I'm trying out, I follow this artist who I really like, and I'm kind of giving this thing that they do a go, and like see how I'm gonna wear their skin for a second and see how that feels. But like, don't let that be your skin, but like let it kind of, it's good to try shit. Just try it out for a second.
Yeah. Especially since, when you're gonna go into animation, you're gonna have to be doing that as part of your job.
Yeah, you are a chameleon anyway, so adapting other people's looks is the name of the game until you get your own shit.
Yeah. And then you have everyone else make it better. That's just
and then you like then you do a crude version of the thing that you're hoping for, and then you find people who are more talented than you to execute it. Yeah.
From @ColeOtt, a familiar name. What was your favorite line read in the Zim movie?
Oh, you're so sweet. Cole was racking his brain how he could like bring voice acting into this.
Oh, sure.
He's so sweet. I mean, I think the one that I always go back to is like, because Joan and I reference it a lot in our stupid stream with the woman who says, I love it. Or it's a lot more alive than I thought it would be, though. When she gets the weird, like, gargling, like, a living bracelet put on her wrist.
Oh, yeah.
I later listened to that and realized it sounded very much like Flapjack, and I did not intend for that to happen. I was like, oh, shit, I just sound like Flapjack. That one was fun. God, I'm trying to remember. There was a take that we recorded during Scratch that did not end up in the movie. And I was reading for Gaz, and I did like a Cartman voice by accident, and it just was the dumbest sounding thing ever, and it became like a secret reference on the crew. I think she just says something like, wait a minute, or wait, I think we could, or something like that. But it ended up being like, wait, I think we could. Like, it was so stupid sounding. And it just made all of us laugh every time it came up in, like, the boards, because it was in this Scratch and it just sounded nothing like the character. But yeah, I don't know, there's a few. I love it. Like, yeah, dumb thing from that woman was very fun. It's so stupid.
From @Devon1224, what exactly does an art director do? Any tips for improving character design skills?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. I find that a lot of people have no idea what an art director does.
Yeah, those are two separate questions, and there was a third that I'll get to.
Okay. Yeah, so an art director is basically like one of the first people you would hire in a production when you're starting to kind of figure out what it looks like. And they help you guide the show or the movie or whatever commercial that you're working on in a visual direction. So they kind of will help pick the palettes, and sometimes they will be responsible for also designing the environments and the characters that exist in those environments. Like every aspect of it, they kind of like figure out what that's going to look like, and that sometimes involves their own personal skills or even just hiring an artist that they want to work with directly. Like when I was on Zim, I'm not a strong background artist. I can fudge my way through it, but it's not my steez. And sure. I hit up Simon, who I mentioned earlier, and he and I ping-ponged back and forth like drawings of Zim's house externally and internally that we kept going back and forth through until it felt like we got it to a place that was right, along with like Jonan helping kind of guide that process. So you're basically like managing all of that. And then when it comes to actually full-blown production, you are the funnel through which all of the art passes to create, like, make sure that there's a cohesive look. So you would have your character designers, your background designers, your painters, your prop and effects designers. Like, your whole design team is under you, and you can assign kind of like micro funnels underneath you, like leads, to help be like kind of mini versions of your position, where you're like looking over the whole thing, and then they can look more like specifically at just character, at just background. So you're just managing the whole team. And also, apparently, being an art director means having a lot of people come into your office and lay on your couch and tell you all their woes, because that you become therapist and mother. You're a crew mother. That is the unspoken part of art direction, but it happens for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're a leader.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense.
I like it though. I'm fine with it. Oh, I didn't do the character design one. Whoops.
Any tips for improving character design skills?
Yes, always. I think I love just, if you just dick around on the internet and you see something that is this is gonna get gross. Sorry about everybody. I fell down a wormhole recently of just like these really giant inflatable fuck toys, and like they are so weird, and like But the shapes, I was like, these are weird and good shapes. Like
The shapes.
I was like, these are hideous, and also like, why am I looking at so many of these? But I ended up taking like hundreds of screen grabs because I was like, holy shit, the proportions from like where the waist meets into the hips is like really, really interesting to me. So like I would say finding things that entice you that aren't necessarily directly related to animation is actually a really nice exercise to like test, like putting yourself out of a habit of drawing a body the same way over and over again, or drawing a head the same way. Like, get weird with it. But also, on the polar end of that, like, don't ever stop testing yourself in things like anatomy that are like your bones, because at the end of the day, the structure that goes underneath your character is the thing that is going to make it feel plausible and volumetric.
Yeah.
And being mindful that someone is gonna have to fucking draw this thing like 8 million times. Like if you yourself wouldn't want to draw like 50 tassels on a skirt on a character that you've designed, like maybe think about the person in the future that would have to do that, because you should, I think it's always like, pare it down as best you can. Like, if you have a really overcomplicated design or something, then take that and then be like, what is unnecessary? What can I remove that does not hurt the integrity of the design, but like feels like excess, you know? Using the like Chanel quote, like whatever accessory you add last, like get rid of it before you like go to your party or whatever. Same deal. I think it's easy to like fall into this rut of like burdening your designs with like detail, but that does not necessarily make for efficient animated character designs. It makes for a headache. You want to be able to move those through space, and being mindful of your animators is super important. So yeah, anatomy, play with shapes, and yeah, be mindful of your animators.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
From @3bubby. If you had to pitch a show based on your weirdest dreams / nightmares, what would it be?
Oh, God. That is I think I even responded to that with like, oh no, my dreams are a mess. Like I have had my dreams are strangely linear and could translate, but they would also be awful. Like, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. No one would buy a show based on my hideous, weird dreams. Like, I had a dream once where my sister was ill, and she's like a very talented fashion designer and artist herself, but she had some like gala to go to, and she's like, oh no, I can't go to the gala because I'm very sick. And I was like, well, I'll go in your place. Let's just swap skin. And then she's like, okay. And then it was this process of climbing out of our skins. And my sister's like, you know, like we have like very differently shaped bodies. She's like curvy, and I'm like built like a pickle, like a little cucumber person. And like when I put on her skin, it like was incredibly ill fitting, and the fingers felt like giant thick rubber dish gloves on my hands. And then like I had to like, but her fingers are shorter than mine, so I was having to like tug them down really far, but they'd like keep like going, I don't know. And then my sister got into my skin, and it was like way too small for her, so it was all like ill-fitting as well. But then I remember looking in the mirror and trying to apply makeup to this face that's like sliding all over my own face because it doesn't fit, and doing the best I could with it, and then styling my hair and putting on a dress and going to the gala and successfully being like, I made contacts and did really well at this gala for some reason for this like fashion thing, and then came back to my sister and I was like, look at all these contacts I made for you. And then
this is very linear.
Yeah, and then swapping our skins back, and then mine was all stretched out, and I was all bummed about it because it's like, now it doesn't fit anymore. And like Rachel, Rachel's skin also being stretched out in different ways than she was anticipating, and just like this is, my dreams are like these little micro stories that I feel like are so weird and gross and like would not translate well into a show, necessarily. Like maybe an episode of something upsetting, but I don't know if they'd be a good show.
It could be an adult show.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't know if swapping skins is not enough to build a show on.
No, for real. I hear you, but it's like that. Like
it's an episode of Goosebumps.
The tone is so funny. It's like, like Goosebumps. It's like.
And then from @GiaLigamari, our good friend, how has studio work from home affected your workflow?
Oh, this is such a rough one. And I'm sure like every artist out there is going to like groan if they've been like working through this pandemic. It's interesting. Work from home is something I've done my whole career. I've had very long bouts of only working from home, and it's very different than this last year has been because you can see friends and stuff and you have like a life outside of it, and generally you can kind of create your own hours. The difference from that to pandemic is like I found that boundaries and time became non-existent. So like when I was at my previous job, it was like lunch and off work hours they weren't a thing anymore. I didn't have breaks anymore. It was suddenly like I would get out of bed, I wouldn't change into anything other than like I throw pants on, and then I would just sit down and start. I'd just jump into meetings and be in meetings until 6 p.m. and then I'd be like, well, now starts part 2 of my day where I draw 8,000 designs, and then I'd just do that until 5 a.m. and then I'd go to bed and begin it all over again. And it was just like that every single day. For those of you that are still working from home, do your best to actually set real boundaries for yourself, because like, man, I really, really burned myself out, as I'm sure many of us have done.
Yep.
I relate to that a lot. Yeah. It's so hard. It like what you said exactly. Like, at the beginning, like you start on a gig and you're like,
yeah,
I'm taking 2 hours for myself in the morning, and then you just like get stressed out over a deadline, and the first thing you do is just log into email, answer emails, answer Slack, work, manage the artists, and like, yeah, dude.
Well, yeah, and I think about like the accessibility to artists now versus like my parents. Like, there was no such thing as Slack. Like, if they're working from home, somebody had to call them on the goddamn phone to get to them. Like, it's such a different, and they wouldn't, like they'd go into the studio from time to time and check in or whatever, or they would call them on the phone, or they'd send a fucking courier to their house with something. But like, we are so accessible. We have things like Slack. I had both Slack and GChat on my phone just blowing up all day long at all hours because I was like on call, to the point where like I found text messaging in general and like any kind of correspondence over my phone to start becoming very hostile for me over the pandemic, because I was like constantly getting poked at, and it just started to stress me out so bad that I was like, oh my God, phone.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, making sure that you set real boundaries where you're like, I'm going to start work at 10 like I would at a normal job, and then I will stop working, like set a timer and be like, it is 12 o'clock, it is my lunch break. Then set a timer for 1 p.m, be like, my lunch is over, and then try to go back to your desk, finish out your workday like you would normally, and then it's like, now it's 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever you're working till, and you're like, and my workday is done, I'm turning off all my alerts on my phone, I'm shutting my email, like I'm not looking at my email, I'm not doing any of it. Like, the job can't get mad at you for that, because it's technically really your work hours, but I know it's easy to feel like they can, because they know you're home. That's the worst part. It's like, I know where you are. You're like, because I'm not allowed.
Yeah, that's like that like feels so real, especially like the timer thing. Like it feels so real. Especially, I don't know, like I think the hardest part is when you're on like a job that is like on call.
Yeah, that's what I'm at right now. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I'm working with German clients, and I am literally taking meetings at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm working up until that call. I have a meeting today at 1 a.m.
Oh my God.
Because it's their 10 a.m. and they poke at me like throughout the day and like all through the night, and it's just it's hard. It's hard being on call.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God.
I've been there, yeah. Well, what do you want to plug?
Fuck, I don't know. I mean, I mean, everybody should go watch Centaur World. Not I played a very minor role in it, doing character design, along with like incredibly talented people like Kat and Harley and Evan and Bill and like, oh my God, so many talented humans. And it's just a really well written show that's full of like super duper talented and funny, like, and it's a musical. Like the jams are actually very catchy, which blew my mind. Both the creators of it are like big musical buffs, so it comes from a very like real place. Yeah, it's crazy. And as far as plugging personal stuff, I mean, everybody just cross your fingers that my pitch maybe works out. And
oh God, I hope so.
Like, yeah, come join me and Jonan streaming every Monday at 6 p.m. making dicks of ourselves and drawing bullshit and being dumb.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
those streams are hilarious. Well, that's the end of our creative block. Thanks to Jenny for being our guest and sharing her story.
And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.